Statues is a good example of a nuanced area. Like, some of them undoubtedly need to be pulled down. Some of them are just... like, the King Leopold ones that are all over Belgium. So there's nothing good to say about King Leopold.
No.
So why are there statues of him everywhere? Just take them down. But then there are other ones that are obviously a little bit more grey, aren't they?
Or green, if they're made out of copper. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Soviet statue garden, which all the former Soviet republics have, where they take all of the statues and the road signs and things like this, and they put them in a park with signs that say this is why the statue was built and this is why it's now in here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it should be done. It should be presented in isolation so that these people are no longer being celebrated as public figures or used to ollie off by skateboarders.
Yeah.
But can be put in a place where if you want to go and learn about that area of history, it's there and it's available, but it's not staring you down as you walk to work every day.
It's not being celebrated.
That's my opinion.
I completely agree with you. For example, the Bristol statue, just take it down and put it in a museum, but don't celebrate them.
No, you can celebrate it in the museum gift shop. With your Colston ice cube maker, dunking in your G&T. Right, should we do a podcast off the back of that? That's going to be fun to try and condense into 3 minutes of jollity at the start of the episode.
Put it at the end.
Might have to pick a highlight from somewhere in the middle.
A 10-minute bonus edition.
Oh, Christ. Hello and welcome to That Was Genius, the little history podcast which tries to stay unpolitical, but sometimes it's very difficult, in which Tom and... which now means I have to use some of that intro.
Shit.
Let me try that again, in a way in which I don't. Hello and welcome to That Was Genius, the little history podcast, in which Tom and Sam, two friends on used to be different sides of the world, now different sides of the political spectrum, not again, discuss history topics on a theme each week. We decide the topic the week in advance, but everything else that happens is a surprise. And what's our topic this week, Tom?
Political advisors. So there is a political edge to this whole episode.
Or right-hand men, wasn't it? It was,
yeah. Right-hand man, advisors, that sort of thing. And this was inspired by, and again, Sam and I try and avoid being too topical with these episodes, so it was inspired by a British political advisor a few weeks ago being a complete dick, living by the motto, one rule for you, another rule for us. And there are quite a lot of examples, aren't there, Sam?
There certainly are.
This is a rich mine of potential topics. That didn't make any sense. There were a lot of opportunities here. There were a lot of topics that you could have chosen under the umbrella topic of right-hand men.
Yes, including possibly, if you wanted to be a little bit controversial, left-handed men.
Yes. Well, that's actually quite a good topic.
Yes.
That would be a good topic. Left-handed people.
Niche.
Yeah, I quite like that. Because left-handed people have been persecuted at points during history, haven't they?
They have.
Victorian schooling systems.
Well, do you know what? When I was a kid, which was in the 1980s, early 90s, my primary school, because I'm left-handed, my primary school sellotaped the knife and fork into my hands right-handed so that I couldn't swap them over. And to this day, I eat right-handed, and badly.
Is that right? So you'd have your fork in your right hand, knife in your left hand?
Yes, and...
so the fork requires more dexterity, does it?
If I was eating left-handed, it would be fork in right, knife in left, because you need the strength to push down on the knife.
Right, you need power.
Yeah.
Strong. What are you eating? Bruised blocks.
I'm just not very good at cooking steak. Very, very well done.
Great. I think left-handed people could be a good topic. And I think I suggested this one, didn't I? Because of Piers Gaveston. He had the ear of the rather mediocre English King Edward II, who was preceded by Edward I, who was fantastic. Well, successful. Fantastic is probably not the right word.
Scotland would like a word.
Yeah, so would Wales.
Yeah.
And then Edward III.
Wales doesn't get a word, it's a principality.
Yeah. And Edward III was very successful as well, but poor old Edward II was a bit naff. And Gaveston was exceptionally unpopular with English nobles due to his perceived influence over Edward II. And there were even rumours that the two were lovers, but that's probably just to discredit the two of them. I think they were probably more like just private school wallies that had known each other since childhood and still liked to frolic around in their mid-20s.
I thought you were going to say frolic around in their underwear.
Yeah, well, this was the Middle Ages, so underwear probably wasn't that kinky. It was probably long johns and
or clean. Verily, Sirrah, I only had my bath a month ago. Get 'em while they're fresh. Right, so anyway, how did you find this week, Tom?
Great, very good. I found a topic that's quite fun, not outrageously funny. So it's not laugh out loud funny, but it is quite fun. So that's what I got for you.
Good.
And by laugh out loud funny, for our regular listeners, that usually means outrageously stupid, vulgar, or involving French people.
Yes.
So we haven't got the most subtle sense of humour.
You don't really need to qualify vulgar and outrageously stupid with and French people. It's
You're implying they're all vulgar
and stupid.
stupid.
I had lofty ambitions this week. I found the topic I'm talking about, I found really quickly. And then I was like, okay, well, it's a good story. It's a classic That Was Genius story from Sam, which is inherently a little bit silly and a little bit funny, but quite interesting and kind of writes itself. And then I discovered a Chinese dude who's just the most fascinating man I've ever read about. He's the principal character in one of the great Chinese epic novels, which is semi-historical and is 800,000 words long and has 1,000 named characters.
Wow.
It's nearly half the length of Lord of the Rings. And
not going to happen in a week.
It was just way, way, way too much to read. But I am going to keep on reading about him, and hopefully once I've read everything, I'm then going to be in a position to condense it down.
Yeah.
It's because I really want to talk about him. He's absolutely amazing. He invented and wrote and did so much. He's that almost mythical, stereotypical Chinese, Japanese sage.
Bam! Mythical, stereotypical. Even got some beats. For your rhymes.
Yeah, that sounded like a Jamiroquai song, didn't it? Yes, he's mythical and spiritual, transcendental, and he wears a stupid hat.
He's got canned heat in his heels tonight.
Indeed. So I'm going to talk about him one day, but not today. Today, I'm doing cross-dressing pirates today.
Nice. My favourite going out outfit. I almost went Chinese as well, because I started looking...
And then your wife warned you that is racist. And so you just went as Einstein for Halloween, for your kid's birthday party.
Yes. No, it's quite all right.
Too easy.
So no, I almost went Chinese. Because you're still giggling at your own joke.
I'm a funny man, Tom. I'm a funny man. I'm just picturing you doing that scene from Father Ted where he puts a lampshade on his head.
What?
And he looks out the window and there's a Chinese family watching him through the window. And he walks out of the house and the neighbour looks over and he shouts, "Father, I hear you're a racist now, Father." Is that something from the church? Because I'm going to struggle with the old racism now because the farm takes up quite a lot of me time.
And then the mad lady turns up, doesn't she?
Come on, you father!
Take it to him, Father! That's the episode, isn't it, with the square bit of dirt in the window. But that is
Yes.
there all episode simply for the opportunity to give Father Ted a Hitler moustache when he stands out of the window. That's the only reason it's there. Wonderfully odd. No, I almost went Chinese. I wanted to do a different period and geographical location for my history because I just generally fall back on Plutarch in classics or medieval English history, and I wanted to vary it. And did you come across mirrors for princes in your research?
No.
It's a whole genre of historical documents, and there are lots of them from a diverse range of places and periods.
Mirrors for Princes sounds like a Tears for Fears album or a Tears for Fears tribute band.
All around me are...
Lots of princes, lots of princes, lots of princes.
And artists formerly known as princes.
As princes.
Formerly known as
princes.
You've got a very squeaky giggle tonight, Sam.
Oh, I do. I'm very excited. It's been a very long
like
day.
a helium balloon.
We've been pram shopping.
Oh, wow.
Absolute hell. Well,
I've got various pictures in my mind. The first is of you being pushed around in a pram by your wife.
You have to road test them, Tom. road and load test, yeah.
Oh dear.
Very disappointing. I had lofty images in my head of a pram shop in which dads were catered for. So it was like
a gaming area, a basketball court.
No, Tom. No. I mean a racetrack painted on the floor so that you can time trial the prams.
Oh, yeah, nice action, that. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Through the cones. Very nice, very nice. A whole
section of clip-on, go faster, spoilers, and various other ways.
And a Dixie air horns.
Have you gone? Are you going for like an outdoorsy one that you can go jogging with?
Of course we are. Yeah.
Are you going to get like thick wheels for multi-terrain, or are you going to go?
Absolutely. Well, that's the other thing I was very disappointed at. I was hoping that there'd be like, when you go into an outdoor shop to buy walking boots, if you're that way inclined, and there's that little like fake bridge they've made out of rocks so you can simulate.
Oh yes.
Going across a giant hill. And you never know what you're looking for because all walking boots are horrendously uncomfortable when you first put them on. So you walk to the top of the tiny bridge, which looks like it should be over a koi pond, but is covered in jagged rocks, and you say, very comfortable, yes, very supportive. And then you go down and buy them in absolute agony and just hope and pray that they improve. I was hoping for one of those with a pram.
It sounds a little bit like you at a restaurant ordering wine. Yes, very tasty. Yes.
It would have been a lot simpler if I'd done it like I go into the restaurant with wine. I will have your second cheapest pram, please. I will have the house pram.
I'll have the dregs pram. Thank you.
Yes.
So I've seen people out running with very, very streamlined children's buggies.
Oh, God, yeah.
With almost like road cycle wheels.
Disc wheels. Yeah.
God forbid, pushing the pram is... You're not going to get any PBs, are you? When you're pushing the pram.
Although I suspect what you may have been seeing, Tom, was someone in Paralympic training on a recumbent bike. It wasn't a child. It was a Paralympian. That is the only politically incorrect joke that's making it into this podcast today.
Oh, Peloton.
Sorry, that is awful, isn't it?
As I drive past. Bit far from the nursery, ain't you? Aye. Aye. Day trip, is it, to the library?
Oi, sing the Dora the Explorer theme tune. We're moving on to history.
Oh, are we? Okay.
You go first, Tom.
Me? Okay, I'm going first then. I'm talking about a chap called Raja Birbal.
Ah.
You heard of old Raja Birbal?
I haven't heard of Raja Birbal. I've heard of Roger Bublé, the posh middle-class version.
Michael Bublé's younger brother, Roger Bublé.
Yes.
Rogering Bublé? No, it doesn't really work, does it?
No.
Worth a shot, just to give you something more to edit out.
Yes.
Something more to throw on the edit pile.
Yes, I'd say, the cutting room floor is going to look like a fucking snow globe by the end of this episode.
You're going to be warm this weekend in your house. Burning all the cuttings. I'm not sure. Do we have any Indian listeners?
We do, a small number. Yeah.
A small number, excellent. So they probably have heard of Raja Birbal. My understanding is he's very well known on the Indian subcontinent, and apparently the stories that involve him are very popular kid stories. And I actually spotted a Netflix cartoon based on Raja Birbal.
39 downloads in India.
39 downloads in India. Wonderful. There you go.
Yes.
So those Indian listeners might well know who I'm talking about.
Hi-lo to all of our Indian listeners.
What is hi?
Which is hello in Hindi.
Excellent. For a country that has how many national languages?
2,000 possibly.
Yeah, ridiculous, isn't it? Amazing. Anyway, let me introduce, before we talk about Raja Birbal, let me introduce Akbar the Great, the third Mughal Emperor.
Nice.
Who reigned from 1556 to 1605. So yes, for those listeners who might not know too much about the Mughal Empire, it was a very large empire that controlled at its height the majority of the Indian subcontinent. The empire lasted for about 300 years, eventually being knocked on the head by some good old British imperialism. God bless.
God bless.
God bless.
They're ruling more than just the bloody waves.
Yes. Exactly. The first Mughal emperor, Babur, claimed descent from Genghis Khan and Tamerlane, or Timur, depending on what you want to call him, both famous Mongol rulers. And from what I could make out, he was basically a noble brat who wanted an empire. So he wandered around for a bit, got involved in a few scraps where he came out on the losing side, eventually found himself in the north of modern-day India, and managed to construct himself an empire there. So it's a bit of a, Daddy, I want an empire. Why can't I have an empire like everybody else? Do you know who I am? I'm descended from Genghis Khan. the word Mughal was actually derived from Mongol. Mughal, Mongol. No. Interesting. Very interesting. And Akbar was a sexful? He was a sexful emperor.
Was a sex pest.
Well, it's probably not far from the truth.
Well,
with his all his, Akbar was sexful.
Excellent.
Full of it. Akbar was a successful emperor who surrounded himself with good advisors or members of his Navaratna, which translates as 9 gems or 9 jewels. And yes, there were 9 advisors. Birbal, Raja Birbal, was one of these advisors, and he was known for his quick wit, cunning, and ability to outsmart people. Much like us, Sam.
Yes.
Doctor, I got a bit of lettuce poking out my bum. Oh, I'm afraid that's just the tip of the iceberg.
That's a wonderful joke, completely out of context. What was that possibly related to?
Was nothing. I just thought I'd throw it in. Why not?
Well, that's the problem, Tom. They throw in quite easily. It's getting them out again that's a problem.
What are some of my other favourite jokes? I've probably told you most of these, haven't I?
You probably have. I like it when you do your history story.
I haven't learnt any new good jokes recently. Birbal became Akbar's closest advisor, and subsequently he garnered much antipathy and jealousy from the other prominent members of Akbar's court. It probably didn't help that he was Hindu also, surrounded by Muslims. And interestingly, Emperor Akbar tried to start his own religion during his reign, as a bit of an aside, because he was deeply interested in spiritual matters. I think I read somewhere that he had what was probably an epileptic fit at one point during his life. Came out of that epileptic fit with a sort of new view on life. And I think he tried to merge some elements of Hinduism and some elements of Islam into this new religion, but it didn't really take off. But he sounds like he was very interested in spiritual matters. He even tried to bring together leaders of the multitude of religions present in his empire to discuss religious matters together, presumably with an open mind, only to find, predictably, that they just ended up shouting at each other. Yeah, I know. Would you believe it?
You get all the leaders of religion together and they don't like each other.
I know. You get people with strong-held beliefs.
Strong-held beliefs, the pillar of which is the doubting of all other beliefs.
Yeah, quite worse than that, and the fact that you're probably not going to get to heaven.
Yes.
But eternal damnation is there for you if you don't do what you're told. Yes, so that's the background bit. Now on to the slightly more fun stuff. And as I
think I've mentioned in this podcast before that my great-great-great-grandfather, I think, possibly great-great-great-uncle, started his own religion, which still exists in India.
Yeah, I think you did tell me that.
I think I've mentioned this on this podcast, haven't I? Yeah. Cult leader.
What are the main pillars of that religion?
They worship
trains.
A painting. Shut up.
They worship a picture.
Bloody heretics.
They worship a picture.
They do worship a picture of Indian version of the Madonna.
Right.
And no,
I'm not going to say the big boobies in an Indian accent. I'm not going to say it.
Go on, you say it, I'll edit it
out.
No,
I'm not going to do it. I'm not... That's me trying to... repress it. Keeping it down.
If that's what your repressing sounds like, I'm not entirely sure I want to know what your expression sounds like.
I'm not rising to the bait. So there are lots of folk stories involving Akbar and Birbal that came out of this strong relationship of theirs, and I think I researched they're possibly about 300 years old. They're still very, very popular today, and they're basically just little fun, innocent, not very rude. Sorry, listeners. Sort of fun fable stories, but I think they're quite witty. They are quite cool. So let's go through a few of these. I've got quite a lot of them, Sam, because I thought what we'd do is we just go through a load and you can edit out the crap ones.
Oh, good. Well, you've not given me much to edit yet this episode. Jesus.
It's a first.
I'm supposed to be spending some time with the family this weekend.
Buggy racing. Finding the steepest hill in the neighbourhood.
We live on it. It's going to be a trial of the handbrake.
And the calves. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got calves like a Victoria's Secret model, i.e. not. So...
Is that right? Always struggle with calves, don't a lot of not that you're a bodybuilder, but people who like to hit the gym. So here's one of the first stories that I thought was quite good, and I did cut out a lot of the rather mediocre ones. A stranger stopped Birbal in the street and began regaling him with stories of his miserable life and all of his difficulties.
By the way, have you listened to my podcast?
The stranger then said that he'd walked 20 miles to see Birbal, and everyone he met on the way had said that Birbal was the most generous man in the world. The stranger predictably then asked for money. Birbal responded by asking him to piss off back from whence he came, telling everyone he encounters that Birbal isn't the most generous man in the world. Not necessarily the most witty thing Birbal says in any of these folk tales.
But I can see why you felt a connection to this man.
Yes, fuck off, you pauper. On another occasion, Birbal finds himself at the court of the Persian king. He has a lovely time. When he's about to leave, he's asked by the courtiers how the Persian king compares to his king. Birbal says that the Persian king is like a full moon, whereas Akbar is like a quarter moon. And the Persians are delighted, and when Birbal returns, Akbar isn't. He's very annoyed. Birbal then explains the full moon is about to fade, whereas a quarter moon is growing stronger. There you go, yeah.
Oh,
clever,
sage.
Clever Birbal. Akbar, here's another one. Akbar asks his courtiers what they think a suitable punishment would be for someone who pulls his moustache. Rather strange thing to ask your courtiers.
Fart in his face.
Today, I would like you to tell me what you think a suitable punishment would be for someone who pulls my moustache. And you said...
And what would be a suitable punishment for someone who tickled my bottom?
Come on, what do you think it is? Come on, explain yourselves. So one of them says flogging, another says hanging, and a third says beheading. Birbal, the clever little cad that he is, then pipes up and says, a sweet. Akbar, a sweet. Everyone looks very confused, and then Birbal explains that only Akbar's grandson would dare do such a thing. Here's another one. I think you'll probably quite like this one, Sam. I've made a few small changes to the original story. One day Akbar and Birbal were riding through the countryside, and they happened to pass by a cabbage patch. That's part of the original story. Cabbages are so yummy, said Akbar. I just love...
Is he German?
I love a good cabbage. The cabbage is the king. Is it Samuel L. Jackson? I just love a good cabbage. Dear cabbage.
You know what they call a cabbage in Europe? A sauerkraut.
That is a tasty cabbage. The cabbage is the king of vegetables, said Birbal. A few weeks later, they were riding past the cabbage patch again. Akbar isn't so impressed anymore. I used to love cabbage, but now they make me fart like a trooper. I did that bit myself. The cabbage is a tasteless, horrible vegetable, agreed Birbal. The Emperor was astonished. But the last time we were here, you said it was the king of vegetables. Yes, admitted Birbal, but I am your servant, your majesty, not the cabbages. I like that. Now here's one about a mango tree that I included just because it's similar to the story, the Judgment of Solomon from the Book of Kings, from both the Hebrew and the Christian Bibles.
Oh.
And it's one about a mango tree. Two men dispute ownership of it. Birbal tells both that the tree will be split down the middle and shared both ways. One man gets upset and asks for the tree to be given to the other man whole rather than have it destroyed, and Birbal uses this trick to ascertain that the tree was this man's because he loved it so much he didn't want to see it chopped in half. And that is the basic story of the Judgment of Solomon, except yes. The Bible likes to take things one extra step and turn it into babies.
Yes.
Emperor Akbar had a dream that he and Birbal knocked into each other in the dark. Akbar fell into a pool of rice pudding. Interpret that one. Birbal fell into a gutter. When he recounted the story to the court, they all laughed at Birbal's misfortune in the dream, and Akbar was very pleased to have got one over on the cunning Birbal. However, Birbal retorted that he too had the same dream, but he slept through to the end of it, unlike Akbar, and at the end, Akbar climbed out of the rice pudding, Birbal out of the gutter, and they could not find any water to clean themselves with. Instead, they decided to lick each other clean. Damn that Birbal. Oh, always getting the better of me. Why I oughta.
That's a somewhat forced ending to that story, isn't it?
So they decided to lick each other clean. It sounds like a lead into a porno, doesn't it?
Oh, that's a narrow interest.
Mughal princely porn. Subcategory rice pudding.
Subcategory gutter.
Here's another one. An intellectual came to the court of Akbar and wished to know if Birbal was as smart as everyone said he was. He asked Birbal if he would like 100 easy questions or one very difficult one. Birbal was in a bit of a rush, so he asked for one very difficult one. What came first? The man said, the chicken or the egg? Birbal responded very quickly, the chicken. What makes you so sure? Said the intellectual. Birbal responds with, that's 2 questions, so I must be on my way. Hey, old Birbal. I don't know.
Nice. I mean, he's wrong.
No.
He's obviously wrong, but...
Oh, you think it's the egg, do you?
Well, dinosaurs had eggs, didn't they?
Ah, but did single-cell organisms?
Single-cell organisms aren't chickens, so still the egg.
Or were they dinosaurs? What?
No, but eggs have existed long before chickens have, haven't they?
The question wasn't about dinosaurs, the question was about chickens.
It doesn't have to be a chicken's egg. It could be an egg of any description.
Oh, I'm not sure that was in the question there. I think you're reading between the lines a bit too much.
You're reading between the lines by assuming it's a chicken's egg. It's never specified.
You smell.
Oh, shit.
Akbar
Carry on.
Birbal, for if it is possible for someone to be the lowest and the noblest man at the same time. Birbal says most definitely, and brings before Akbar
Where's this going?
a beggar.
Ooh.
Akbar points out that the beggar is indeed low, but how is he so noble? Birbal points out that he's currently enjoying an audience with the Emperor. Anyway, back onto real history. Birbal eventually died in an ill-fated expedition to quash hostile Yusufzi tribes on the northwestern border of the empire. The Mughal forces were ambushed and 8,000 men were killed in this expedition, including Birbal. The Yusufzai, which basically translates as people of Yusuf, I think, are still a distinct ethnic group in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And can you name the famous person of this ethnicity who went to Edgbaston High School in Birmingham, directly opposite the Birmingham University campus that we attended?
Not his name's on the edge of my tongue. The cricketer who's now the Prime Minister of Pakistan.
Fred Flintoff. No.
Yeah, yes.
Who are you thinking? What the fuck's his name?
Imran Khan.
Imran Khan, the all-rounder, yes, absolutely. And it wasn't Imran Khan. Much younger than Imran Khan. It's Malala, the youngest ever recipient of a Nobel Peace Prize.
She is. I did actually know that.
I did think you had a chance of getting that one. She's the young Pakistani lady who had, for people who don't know, a blog on the BBC Urdu website during the Taliban's occupation of the area of Pakistan where she was brought up as a young girl, and she survived in an assassination attempt at the hands of the Taliban, and is currently studying at Oxford University. She's since become a vocal advocate of education for all, hasn't she?
An all-round good egg.
Good egg, absolutely. And interestingly, Sam, I earned myself 6 A stars, 4 A's and 1 B in my GCSEs. Malala, the fool, only got 6 A's and 4 A's. Which logically means I should have a Nobel Peace Prize that's just slightly larger than Malala's.
Well, Tom, I think you've truly there proven that you are the smarty pants.
I am quite the Peace
comedy
Prize
duo
person. What did you get for your GCSEs? Come on, just tell everyone, Sam.
What did I get in my GCSEs? I got 4 A stars.
How's that all?
4 A's, 2 B's and a C.
C? What did you get your C in?
Art. My art teacher lost my final project and gave me a sympathy grade.
What a bitch! It could have been an A star.
I don't think it could have been. I made a life-size head of Crichton the robot from Red Dwarf.
Spare head 3.
Yeah. No, I did. It was an artistic study of different expressions.
Oh, brilliant.
But I did them as Crichton.
Very good. I'd love to have seen that. I did.
I carved them out of polystyrene and painted them and everything, and he lost them.
Wow, lost them, my arse. He's got them on his mantelpiece. They were that good.
Well, they weren't. I don't think they were.
This
the absolute smeag heed.
Our art projects say a lot about us. One of my GCSE pieces of artwork was a clay boot that was supposed to be in the style of a famous artist. And I chose Leo Baxendale, who drew the Bash Street Kids in the Beano.
Nice.
Oh, dear.
Tom, what can you remember what the brand of clay you used was? Because I happen to know that there's a quite popular brand of clay called Das.
Is there?
Yes, in which case you would have made the Das boot.
Yeah. And we all know that Das is good.
Yes.
The Das boot.
That was a niche reference. Mixing clay making
With U-boat programmes.
with U-boat based dramas.
Which incidentally is brilliant, isn't it? I need to watch that again.
Oh, it's a fucking fantastic series.
I watched that a long time. I remember watching that as kids. It's really good. Is it on Netflix or anything?
I don't know. Depends on your territory, I guess. Depends on where in the world you live.
I'll find that. Last thing I'd like to just say quickly, I actually noticed weirdly, and I just thought this was worth bringing up, that Malala has also been awarded Wonk of the Year for 2017 by an American university. Wonk of the Year. Quote...
Yes. Now, a wonk... Well, I won't ruin your quote.
I was about to say, quote, the Wonk of the Year honours individuals who demonstrate engagement, focus, intelligence and passion. Is there not something better they could have called it than the Wonk Award?
Well, a wonk is a thing. It's a phrase.
A wonk is a phrase?
Yeah, so a wonk, you talk about public policy wonks, who are kind of people who are at the peak of engagement.
Wonkiness.
So they're the go-to. They are the wonks.
That's right. Very strange. I thought it was a very odd word. I just think it's a very Roald Dahl word. I mean, it's Willy Wonka, obviously.
It is a little bit, yeah. It's a studious or hard-working person.
Oh, there you go. Oh, excellent.
Or, alternatively, Tom, it can also mean an incompetent sailor. So who knows which of those two camps Malala falls into? I suspect being from northern Pakistan. Both?
Probably both, yes. Yeah.
There you go, Tom. That's where you've got one upon Malala. You're a significantly better kayaker.
2 up. I got better GCSEs than that.
Oh, that's true, yes. Which, considering English is neither of your first languages.
Yeah, no, I like the fact that I'm boasting about having better GCSEs. Nobody attempted to assassinate me, I must admit, during my school years.
No.
No. So I probably had a slightly easier ride.
All right, yeah. One of the popular kids at school, all right.
Oh, you went to a posh school, didn't you? Nobody tried to shoot you. Well, over to you. How far through the recording are we? Oh, only an hour.
Oh, good. And at a full hour, yeah. 56 minutes. It's all right, I'll abridge. We can get this down to an hour and 10. Just stop talking and let me
Let's get this over with.
Let me get through this.
He said to his wife.
Well, Tom, speaking of...
You cad burble.
Sorry, yeah, 30 minutes of recording time wasted by me laughing heartily. It's all right, I just pre-edited it by not doing it during the podcast. Talking of incompetent sailors, it's a pirate's life for me this week. Slick segue. Because I'm going to be talking about the swashbuckling, cross-dressing, mouth as sharp as a sword, pirate-loving sidekicks, and Bonny and Mary Reade.
Bonny and Reade. Excellent.
Yes, absolutely, Bonny and Reade. And Bonny and Mary Reade. And let me tell you, Tom, as two cross-dressing pirates, what a pair they hid, according to at least one of their victims' diaries.
Is that right? They had a cracking pair of conkers.
Well, yes, they did, yes.
A wonderful pair of wangers.
By at least one. In fact, the only reputable account of their life.
They had a fabulous pair of fun bags.
They did indeed, yes. 2 memorable memories. 4 memorable memories, in fact, as far as I'm aware.
Not at all. Nothing sexist about that, is there?
The one and only reputable account of their life specifically references their breasts. That's not why I've chosen this story, it's just an interesting aside. Anne Bonny and Mary Reade, the right-hand women to the infamous 18th century pirates Calico Jack.
Colour-coded Jack, yes.
Yes, colour-coded Jack.
Matchy matchy was his motto.
With his good ship HMS Colour Wheel.
Blue and green should never be seen without another colour in between, folks.
Yep.
Welcome on board.
The pastel pirate. So I've worked off a couple of sources this week, Tom, namely Charles Johnson's A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates from 1724. Yes. The first edition of this book is supposed to be fairly reliable, but it sold so well that he decided he should write a second edition. So the second edition from 1728, all of the good stories made edition 1, and so 1728 version is absolute nonsense.
All the trash that he didn't add in the first one. So it's basically like a B-sides album. Okay.
Well, no, it's just made up. It's complete pulp fiction.
Okay. Fair enough.
So most of what...
Complete Marco Polo, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So most of what we're going to hear today is probably just a good story, but fuck it, it's fun. So sometime around 1700, we don't exactly know when, Anne was born in Ireland. We're going to start with Anne, obviously. Her mum, Mary Brennan, was a maid to her dad, a guy called...
Bishop Brennan. Bishop.
Kick him up the arse.
Would you kick Bishop Brennan up the arse?
Good, because we haven't had enough Father Ted references this week.
They're the two best references, I think, quite possibly.
Yes. So yes, her mum, Mary Bishop Brennan, was a housemaid to her dad, William Cormac, who's a wealthy lawyer. They had an affair, obviously, and Anne's dad hid the birth of his illegitimate child from his wife, and instead spirited the young Anne off to London from a young age, dressing her as a boy, calling her Andy, and training her as a legal clerk. sounds a bit like Lord Flashheart. Woof, dress me as a boy and call me Andy.
Sounds a bit like Bob.
We'll come on to that in a bit. However, this pretty quickly fell apart, and William's wife found out about Anne and cut him off from the family fortune, leaving him pretty much penniless. At this point, Mary and William eloped along with Anne to Carolina, where they once again made lots of money through law and trade. So he went and rebuilt his life with a woman who was once his maid. Anne was apparently a beauty who all of the boys wanted, but was a bit of a prick, Tom.
Right.
And I feel bad, in a way, calling a small child a prick. But there we go. At age 13, she stabbed one of the family servants.
Okay.
In a bit of a rage. A few years later, in fact, not many years later, 2 or 3 years later, when her father kicked her out of the house for marrying a local small-time pirate, a guy called James Bonny.
Small-time pirate? You just don't do it, on the weekends.
It's a side hustle, Tom. It's a side hustle.
Yeah, just... I've only got a small ship.
By day, I am the assistant to the regional manager
of Barclays.
Of an insurance company. Yes. By weekend, I am an absolute pirate. And I don't mean pirate radio. Maybe it was pirate radio.
Back in time for Monday morning.
Maybe he was just a... yeah. So yes, she ran off and married small-time pirate DJ of trance and Ibiza house music, James Bonny. And her dad kicked her out of the house for this. She's rumoured, in response to this, to have burned down the family home on her way out. She strikes me a little bit as one of the Grady twins from The Shining.
Yeah.
You don't want to see her down a darkened corridor.
Are they called the Grady twins?
I think it's the Grady twins.
That's an incredible piece of film knowledge if you know the name of the twins from The Shining. Wow.
Thanks. She and James fled to Nassau in the Bahamas, known as the Pirate Republic, and famously a hotbed of piratical activity, possibly because of its name, the Pirate Republic, which encouraged pirates to flock there. Or possibly it was called the Pirate Republic because of all the pirates. Frankly, Tom will never know.
It's chicken and egg stuff, isn't it?
It's lost to the sands of time, yeah. Either way, James pretty quickly turned mole for the government, dobbing in pirates who operated against British interests and getting several dozen of his colleagues arrested.
Ooh.
Yeah, absolutely. No one likes a turncoat. Anne thought this was a little distasteful at best. After all, swashbucklers have standards.
You dirty wet
bastard. In a huff, she set out for the taverns of Nassau to find someone else to quote-unquote fill her Davy Jones locker. And that man... And that man, Tom, was the famous British pirate Calico Jack Rackham, so called because of his calico-coloured coat, who she fairly quickly shacked up with before fleeing to sea with him as his right-hand man, bringing in the title neatly, to escape a charge of adultery which would have seen her whipped. The two, along with one other pirate, Mary Reade, stole a sloop from the harbour. Sloop's a very small sailing ship. And
useful for part-time pirates.
Useful for part-time pirates, yeah. It's a weekend pirate boat.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing you go out on to do a little bit of raping and pillaging, a little bit of fishing.
And when you build up a bit of momentum with it, you can pack in your day job and then buy yourself a galleon.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's a practice boat. Useful for lakes and inlets, Nice little diving platform off the back. Calico Jack, Anne and Mary Reade stole this little boat and sailed off for the high seas. Now, here, Tom, is where it starts to get a little bit weird. You see, pirates were generally men. In fact, having a woman on board a pirate ship was considered very bad luck, and obviously we know how superstitious pirates can be. And so to fit in, these two started disguising themselves as blokes. And, in particular, a bloke who was sharing the captain's cabin. The captain who, by the way, kept on shivering her timbers and occasionally scrubbing her poop deck. Which...
I say.
Which is obviously fine, but this is the 18th century, and expectations were somewhat different, i.e., pirate captains shouldn't be shagging other pirates. Still, Tom, it must have been love, because the two seemed quite inseparable in the eyes of the crew, even when Calico Jack's new cannon fodder started to gain quite a lot of weight. You know, catch a nice captain, let himself go. Yes, Tom, Anne was pregnant. Yes. So they couldn't keep the secret up for long, and so the crew sailed for Cuba, where Anne popped ashore to pop out a son. Now, we'll come back to Anne in a moment because we need to talk about Mary Reade, who had a pretty interesting childhood herself. She was born in England in 1685 out of a relationship between her mother and some random bloke that she shacked up with after her husband was lost at sea. This would have been absolutely fine, except her oldest child, Mary's half-brother, was due to inherit their missing dad's insurance and estate, and a lot of support from his grandmother. He too had just died.
Right.
So dad has died, lost at sea, and the son has just died as well.
Okay.
Leaving Mary's mother royally screwed. She wasn't going to get any insurance money or support from her son's grandmother.
Wear this fake beard.
Yes, Tom. That's exactly what she did. She dressed up the baby Mary as her son and raised her that way to the outside world for the first few years of her life. So as far as anyone was concerned, this young girl was actually a young boy. It was essentially an insurance fraud, but she got away with it.
Dear.
I mean, it worked. Mary herself realised that dressing as a boy could lead to a world of adventure. You know, the world was a lot more fun when you were a bloke. Still probably is to some extent.
Yeah. Less flower arranging.
Well, I mean, less rampant sexism.
Yeah.
More money for doing the same job.
Boring expectations. You could be a pirate.
Yeah. To be fair, Tom, she started off by joining the British Army. So she did go and seek a world of swashbuckling and adventure, where she convinced everyone that she was a strapping lad and actually did very well in battle during the War of Spanish Succession, fighting alongside the Dutch, during which she fell in love with a Dutch officer, presumably spending plenty of time polishing his musket whilst he practised rearguard actions, and occasionally, if he was feeling polite, giving her a flanking manoeuvre. They did get... I've had my fun with this script. They did get married, much to the confusion of their fellow soldiers, who were still pretty convinced that Mary was a boy. She quit the army and bought a pub. When her husband died pretty shortly afterwards...
Was she like an 80s footballer?
Oh, what, buying a pub?
Seen enough action, going to retire, buy a pub.
Right, that's a niche reference even by our standards.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, when her husband died, she once again dragged up, put on her finest fake beard, and joined the army again, but pretty quickly got bored and instead headed for the Caribbean and a bit more adventure, where she met Calico Jack and Bonny, neither of whom knew that she was a woman. She only revealed herself when Jack became jealous of her supposed advances on Anne, and she had to perform the big reveal and whip off her beard.
Whip off her beard. Got you. Beard. That's exactly what I thought was going to happen. Off with the beard. Yep. Totally where my mind was going.
Yep.
Off with that beard. Oh, it's the lady.
Yes,
totally.
Just take off that beard.
Yeah, beard comes off. I was not going down a carry-on route in my head at all.
No, Barbara Windsor couldn't have been further from your imagination.
Who? Barbara who? I don't know what you're talking about.
So yes, she had to perform the big reveal and basically, yes, puff her cheeks out so the beard pinged off. Boing. Or risk getting into a brawl with their pirate captain. So basically, Jack was about to...
females present on this ship? No.
No, we're all pirate boys. So yes, she had to reveal her secret in order to avoid getting into a fist fight with Jack Calico. Although it's rumoured that actually Anne and Mary did have a bit of a thing going on in the background, all of which must have been a very, very, very confusing love triangle for the rest of the crew, who was still convinced that all three of them were blokes. Apparently, Tom, it wasn't even a very good disguise, because one of their victims, Dorothy Thomas, wrote of the pair in her diary. She was a prisoner on their ship for a while. She was ransomed off. Wrote of the pair that they wore men's jackets and long trousers and handkerchiefs tied about their heads, and each of them had a machete and a pistol in their hands, and they cursed and swore at the men to murder me, before adding, quote, she knew that they were women from the start due to the largeness of their breasts. So quite how they squeeze that part, quote unquote, squeeze that past the crew, I've no idea. Arr, matey, what's your chest routine? How do you get those impressive pecs when the ship Jim only has a few dumbbells and a treadmill? Although, yar, I can't complain, Tom, I can't complain. Because I'll be damned if the morning Pilates session on the main deck doesn't make me feel alive. And Zumba Tuesdays really are the highlight of my week.
You missed an opportunity there for the morning Pirates session.
Oh, fuck. Eventually, what with all the babies popping out and boobies popping out, the rest of the crew did notice. And the pair were eventually allowed free to remove their comedy joke shop moustaches, although they did put them on again whenever there was a scrap or they boarded an enemy ship. They did dress up as men again. All of this looting, and they were quite successful pirates, they captured several ships, and all of this looting got them noticed by the governor in Nassau, who declared Calico Jack and his crew wanted pirates. And on November 15th, 1720, the pirates, completely seriously, were having a house party in which they'd invited a fellow crew on board to get absolutely wankered at Negril Point off the coast of Jamaica.
Sausage Fest!
Sausage Fest!
Or is it?
Just, yeah, I imagine the ship's PA system blasting out, if you like, pina coladas. Whilst they were absolutely mullered on the deck, singing sea shanties. And,
her name is Rio.
Yeah.
And she dances on the sand.
A crew of bounty hunters led by Captain Jonathan Barnett snuck up on the ship before knocking down its sails with a volley of cannon fire, sending the pissed pirates and their guests scurrying for cover.
Show us your bounty. Our other chocolate snacks were not that fussy,
Yes.
but we prefer bounties.
Yes, we are bounty hunters and small Malteser acceptors. But you'll never catch us going after a Milky Way. That is a very niche British joke about a chocolate selection box. So the crew were absolutely hammered and hid below deck, being sick and rubbing their heads. The only people who stayed on deck, one pirate stayed on deck, presumably the one who was detoxing ahead of the Pilates session the next day. Anne and Mary stayed on deck and held off this attack for about half an hour, it's rumoured. They held the ship against these bounty hunters for half an hour. Mary, at one point, got so pissed with the crewmates hiding in the hold and cowering that she shot through the decks and killed one of them to try and get them to come out and do some kind of fighting. The response of which, by Calico Jack and his crewmates, was to just surrender. Clearly they were going to get shot one way or the other by their own crew or by the bounty hunters, so they just gave up and came out without a fight. They were captured. Most of them were pretty quickly hung at a show trial just a few days later, including Calico Jack, who was it was a kangaroo court. He went in, entered a plea, was hung pretty much on the spot. To which Anne responded that if you, Jack, had fought like a man, you needn't have been hanged like a dog. So not the nicest end to their relationship, and her role as his right-hand man. Anne and Mary both pleaded mercy from the court because they were both pregnant at the time. And so they were jailed instead, at least until they'd had their kids, at which point they would have been hung.
Not the kids.
Much clemency, but they...
Parents.
Just the parents, yeah, just the parents. Mary actually died of a fever in prison very shortly afterwards. But Anne vanished from the records, Tom, never to be seen again. And it's rumoured that her father...
Based on how shit they were at spotting females, she probably just...
Yes.
Watch this. I put on a pair of spectacles and I turn into Clark Kent.
Excuse me, I appear to have been locked in here.
Are you Clark Kent? Why, yes, I am. What are you doing here? Out you come. Thank you. There's been a horrible misunderstanding.
Yes.
Now I'll be on my way. I'm so sorry. I don't know how this has happened.
Well, apparently, because there's various stories, none of which are particularly believable about what happened. One of which is that she poisoned the guards and stole their uniform and walked out dressed as a guard.
That old egg.
Yep. And the most common one is that, so the most common story is that her father, famous lawyer by this point in the Americas, heard what had happened, basically bribed her out of jail, and she was allowed to escape overnight and return to Carolina, where she remarried and lived a rather more peaceful life, only occasionally burning down her dad's house. But we'll never know, Tom. So there you go. Anne Bonny and Mary Reade, the right-hand women to
Wonderful.
Calico Jack.
Colour-coded Jack. It does sound a little bit made up, I must admit. I can see where you're coming from. It's still very much historical, though.
Almost certainly, yeah. It's a made-up story from the 1720s.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've just come up with a load of made-up stories, so no, absolutely. But yes.
The two women did exist, so they were both jailed rather than hung.
Right.
And Calico Jack existed and was hung. The end part of the story, jailing and death, did happen. The beginning of the story, their birth, by extension, probably happened.
Probably,
the bit in the middle, who knows?
Very good.
We do have a topic for our patrons episode next
What was
week.
that going to be?
It's lost locations.
Yes, that's a good suggestion. That was a cracking suggestion.
Yes, I think as a patron suggestion, we'll do it as a patron exclusive next week.
Great. I look forward to that one. I think that's going to be a good topic.
How about that? I think it's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
Should we tease with what we're doing 2 weeks' time?
Yes. What do you fancy doing in 2
What
weeks'
did we say
time?
at the start? Left-handed people.
Do you want to do left-handed people?
Lefties.
Okay. Left-handed it
Famous
is.
lefties.
He says with some trepidation. Marvellous. Well, join us in 2 weeks' time if you're not a patron for a sinister episode. It's left-handed in Latin. And next week, if you are a patron, you can hear our special delve into lost places. And if you want to become a patron and hear that episode, you can. You can go to thatwasgeniuspodcast.com, where you'll find a link to our Patreon, or you can go straight to patreon.com/thatwasgenius. And if you just want to get in touch, let us know how you're doing. Any episode suggestions, whatever. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search for That Was Genius, or you can email us. That was geniuscast@gmail.com. Right, do you want to say goodbye, Tom?
I would love to say goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye from me.